We often experience life as a single, unbreakable thread, a continuous flow of time moving from a fixed past into an unknown future. But have you ever noticed those strange moments where everything feels slightly different? You take a new route home or make a sudden impulsive choice, and the entire atmosphere of your day shifts. It isn't just your mood that changes. It feels as if the world around you has rearranged itself. We assume we are walking a single path, but the physical sensation of these shifts suggests something else is happening. Every second, we are navigating a landscape of invisible transitions. Most people overlook these tiny flickers in their perception, yet these moments are the only clues we have to a hidden mechanism of reality. You are not just moving through time, you are flickering between entirely different versions of existence. Think back to a day when everything seemed to click into place. You met the right person at exactly the right time. Opportunities appeared before you even asked for them. In those moments, life feels effortless, as if you were being carried by an invisible current. But we've all experienced the opposite as well. There are days where every step feels like a struggle against the wind. Plans fall through, timing is off, and a strange sense of friction follows you from room to room. Why do these shifts happen so suddenly?
We often dismiss these cycles as luck or mere coincidence, but the pattern appears more often than we realize. It is easy to assume that these are just external events happening to us. Yet there is a subtle consistency to these transitions that most of us have completely overlooked. This raises a deeper question about what is actually moving, the world around us or our own position within it. Watch closely, because the mechanism behind this is far simpler than most people imagine. We usually label these moments as a good day or simply good luck. You wake up with a subtle impulse to leave the house early. You follow it, and suddenly you meet exactly the person you needed to find. The conversation flows, the timing is perfect. In these moments, life feels like a well-choreographed dance. But have you ever noticed how quickly that flow can disappear? The moment you begin to force a result or ignore your own intuition, the atmosphere changes. Suddenly, you face a series of small, frustrating obstacles, red lights, missed calls, and minor misunderstandings. This is the strange consistency many people notice, yet we often overlook it because we are taught to see these events as isolated accidents. However, the repetition suggests something deeper. If you look closely at your own history, you will see these cycles appearing again and again, across different years and different situations. This is where the pattern becomes clear. These shifts aren't happening at random.
They behave more like a response to a hidden signal. The more we observe these recurring cycles of alignment and friction, the more the idea of a single, solid reality begins to dissolve. This is where the experience begins to make sense. We are taught to view our lives as a single, continuous movie, a solid stream of events where one moment causes the next. But this model fails to explain why the flow of our lives can shift so drastically based on a single choice or an internal shift in mood. To understand these patterns, we must consider a different possibility. Reality may not be a continuous flow at all. Instead, it is more like a sequence of discrete, static frames, occurring so rapidly that they create the illusion of motion. Each second is composed of billions of these individual snapshots. In this framework, you are not a passenger on a single track moving through time. You are more like a consciousness navigating a vast library of already existing possibilities. When you feel that sense of alignment or luck, you aren't just having a good day, you are actually shifting through a specific sequence of frames that reflect your internal state. This reveals something important about how reality works. The mechanism is far simpler than we usually expect, because the signal you follow isn't just an emotion, it is the compass you use to choose which version of the next moment you will actually inhabit. To understand why life shifts so suddenly, we have to look at the hidden rule governing these frames. Think of a film projector. The movie looks like a continuous flow of motion, but it is actually made of thousands of still pictures passing before the light. Movement is an illusion created by the speed of the shift. This explains why the pattern behaves this way in your own life. You are the light in the projector, and your internal state, your excitement, your beliefs, and your focus is the mechanism that selects which frame comes next. This is the hidden rule behind the experience. You do not create the next frame, you select it. Imagine a radio dial. All the stations are broadcasting at the same time, but you only hear the one you are tuned to. When you follow a spark of excitement or a sudden intuitive impulse, you are essentially changing the frequency of your tuner. You shift into a sequence of frames where things naturally align. But why does the flow disappear the moment we ignore the signal? It is because ignoring that signal is a decision to tune into a different frequency, one characterized by resistance and friction. This mechanism has been operating in your life the entire time, even in the most ordinary moments. Suddenly, the shift makes sense. You aren't being pushed by external events.
You are navigating through a pre-existing map of possibilities, and your internal signal is the only compass that determines which version of reality becomes your physical experience. If the mechanism is this simple, why is it so difficult to maintain the flow? The answer lies in the subtle ways we interrupt our own signal. Most people mistake the obstacle for wisdom or responsibility. We feel a spark of excitement or an intuitive impulse to move in a new direction, but almost immediately, the inner voice begins to argue. We label our fear as logic and our hesitation as maturity. This is the moment the signal gets replaced by caution. We tell ourselves that following a sudden impulse isn't realistic, or that we must prioritize what is predictable over what is vibrant. This is where many of us lose the signal. We treat the safety of our current frame as a shield, not realizing that by clinging to it, we are simply choosing to repeat the same sequence of events over and over. How many times has caution silenced your own signal of excitement? When we choose fear under the guise of being practical, we aren't just being careful, we are intentionally tuning our frequency back to a reality of stagnation. If you've ever felt this internal tug-of-war between a quiet impulse and a loud logical doubt, I'm curious to hear how you navigated it in the comments. How different would a day feel if you followed the signal instead of the fear?
Shifting your experience doesn't require a massive life overhaul. It begins with a simple, consistent way of responding to the moment. First, look at the options available to you right now and identify the one that contains even the slightest spark of excitement. It doesn't have to be a grand vision. It could be as small as a walk or a phone call. Second, act on that excitement to the best of your ability. Third, follow that path as far as it naturally goes without forcing a result. This is where the navigation begins. The final and most vital step is to release your attachment to what the outcome should look like. This formula works best when followed with curiosity rather than pressure. By acting on the signal, you are effectively telling the mechanism of reality which frequency you choose to inhabit next. This is how the signal becomes action and how the shift in your timeline actually starts. If this perspective resonates with you, consider subscribing for more explorations like this. Each small choice is a vote for the reality you wish to experience. The change rarely starts with something dramatic. It usually begins with an impulse so quiet you might mistake it for your own imagination. Imagine you are working on a routine task and a sudden curiosity about an old hobby or a specific person flickers across your mind. Instead of dismissing it as a distraction, you decide to spend 5 minutes exploring it.
You send a brief message or look up a single piece of information. That afternoon, you receive a reply that leads to an unexpected collaboration, or you stumble upon a resource that solves a problem you've had for weeks. This is often how the shift begins. By following that tiny spark, you navigated away from a stagnant frame and into a sequence where solutions already exist. You may have already experienced similar moments in your life without realizing their significance. Most people dismiss these as pleasant accidents, but when you look closer, you see that the coincidence only appeared after you honored the signal. How many times has a small decision changed the entire direction of your day? These experiences are not random. They are the physical evidence of the mechanism in motion. Each time you act on a small curiosity, you are testing the structure of reality. When we look past the daily application of this idea, a much larger landscape begins to reveal itself. We have explored the mechanics of shifting frames and the role of internal signals, but this suggests something remarkable about the nature of reality.
If every second is composed of billions of static frames, then every possible version of your life must already exist. The successful path, the creative breakthrough, and the life of effortless flow are not things you have to build from scratch. They are pre-existing destinations that are already present in the architecture of consciousness.
This changes the way we understand the experience of choice. It means that your excitement is not just a fleeting emotion. It is a sophisticated navigation tool designed to help you perceive the specific version of reality you prefer. Suddenly, the pattern reveals a deeper meaning. You are not a victim of a linear timeline, but a traveler choosing between infinite possibilities. You may already be standing at the threshold of this realization in your own life. Every time you feel that pull of curiosity, you are sensing a version of yourself that is already real. Could these signals be guiding us toward versions of ourselves we have not yet explored? Reality is far more flexible than it appears, and the compass is already in your hands. Perhaps the signal has been there all along, hiding in the quiet spaces between your thoughts. You may find that as you move through the next few hours, your awareness begins to shift. Small coincidences might feel a little more significant. A sudden curiosity might seem a little more like a direction. The pattern of reality is already unfolding around you, responding to every internal shift you make. You don't need to force the world to change. Sometimes the shift begins simply by noticing where you are already being pulled. How often have these signals appeared quietly in your life, waiting for you to recognize them? As you begin to listen more closely, you may discover that the path you've been seeking is already beneath your feet.
If you're curious about the deeper mechanics behind this internal compass, the exploration appearing on screen dives into the mystery of how your state of being literally constructs the world you see. It is the next step in understanding the true power of your perspective.